Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, a segment that I have done previously but finally decided to name. We're just calling them quick guides. These are the smaller cousins of my full in-depth deck guides that I regularly do and are going to make up probably the bulk of my every other week content while I work on the big stuff. This week, we're focused on the Charmer support that just came out, because if you didn't know, the Structure deck just came out with a couple of new cards that are absolutely incredible. Well, what are we doing putting them in a Goblin deck? Those are spellcasters, those are link monsters that we use as a link deck. You can't play that in Genesys. Well, shut up and I'll tell you. So, Spellbook of the Grand Circle is the entire crux of this deck, and that is because Spellbook of the Grand Circle is a nutty card that allows you to add 4 Charmers with different attributes from your deck, grave, or banishment to your hand, then shuffle 2 cards from hand back into the deck. So if you're counting, that's a +1. You get 4 bodies in exchange for this card, plus 2 cards from hand. Outside of that, the 3-axis deck and goblins in general is historically pretty bricky, so being able to put 2 bricks back in your deck to summon or to use when you actually want to is a really good effect. For example, you don't really want to see any of the goblin names, you don't want to see Mean Merciless, you don't want to see Clatter, you don't want to see Gone Wild, you don't mind Boommock or Doug, but those 3 are pretty bad to see. You don't necessarily want to open Grand Bash or Grand Pile Up. You don't want to see Dark King of the Abyss is fine. You don't want to open Critical because you search it naturally as part of the combo. You don't want to open Full Armored XZs. So any of those, you just shove them back in your deck to go get when you're actually supposed to, which is pretty tight. And that's not even all, because Spellbook has a graveyard effect where you can banish it to fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck using exactly Charmers and Familiar Possessed monsters from hand or field, and it has Branded Lost effect built in where your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when that monster is summoned. That's crucial here because the monster that we're always summoning is going to be Charmers of the Grand Circle. Charmers of the Grand Circle is absolutely insane. This card can be summoned with 2 or more Charmers or Familiar Possessed. We don't have any Familiar Possessed. We're playing a small-ish package in this deck. But we can make it with all 4 of our Charmers. Well, why would we want to do that? Because when this monster is fusion summoned, you can activate this effect. It's worded weird, but basically it has 4 effects, and you can pick one of those 4 a number of times equal to the number of materials used for the initial summon. So those 4 effects are going to be gains 800 attack. You never do that one. Add a Possessed Spell Trap from deck to hand. We don't do that. It's better in pure or Charmer builds or like spell slot piles that use the Charmers. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge tomorrow. But the last 2 effects are both very, very good and very interesting for this deck. Number 1, non-targeting return a card from field to hand. So that can, if we started with Blue Boy, he's not really useful to us as a body, so we can bounce him back to hand just to clear our board, and we'll need to with the number of bodies we put out. But it also just removes the opponent's board and they can't respond to it. That's kind of insane. And then the last effect is just as good, where you can special summon spellcasters from your grave, again up to the number of materials, and you can pick and choose these in the ratio that you want to do them. So for example, you can bounce 1 card that you're really afraid of, and then special summon 3 bodies. Well, wait, but we're Goblin deck, we're not putting spellcaster bodies in the grave. You fool! We do that with the actual line itself that gets us to Charmers of the Grand Circle. We put a bunch of the Charmers in the grave as fusion material, and what do you know? They are all level 3s. That means that if the opponent doesn't have anything we need to bounce, or we don't need to get rid of our own Blue Boy, we can summon out 4 level 3 bodies for fun, and that's literally everything in the deck. Like, we do not have space on board to use all 4 bodies optimally, even without any extension from hand, without our normal summon, without anything else. 4 bodies is too much, arguably, but it's 9 starters that don't take a normal summon, so it's pretty damn good. And even if we open one of our Charmers, it's not the worst thing in the world, because normal summoning one can turn on certain other things. We have so few cards that we want to be normal summoning in this deck, namely just the Tour Guides and the Blue Boys. that sometimes we have a hand where we don't need to normal summon, and maybe we open a Lina and we just use her as a body, which turns on Psychic Tracker or Wielder anyways, so it's not like the worst thing. They're not too bad to see, but we really don't want to see 2, because the reason that I'm playing exactly 5 is that you have to always add 4 off of Spellbook. Granted, you can add 4 from anywhere besides hand, but if you have more than 1 in hand, the card is turned off. And if you're only playing the 4, which minimizes your level of brickiness, then sometimes you'll open exactly 1 area and the whole line is off. It's not as bad in like a spellcaster pile, because in a spellcaster pile you can probably discard or fuse the body away that you open with and then add it back off of Spellbook of the Grand Circle. In this, we don't have a whole lot of ways to get rid of it, which is why I'm playing 5 instead of the exact 4 that you need to make the cards function. In a 60-card deck, it's almost impossible for us to actually see 2 of these bodies, which means that we're probably good in the vast majority of games. Outside of that, it's pretty similar to my previous build of 3-axis. Outside of that was 40 cards. Obviously, this is a 14-card package, and it adds bricks, so we upped it to 60. We are playing 3 manifestations in the main, because that represents just 3 more copies of Typhoon, and we really want to see a Typhoon going second, because it turns on the special summoning of our Radiant Typhoon cards, and because this is a 97-point core, these are our board breakers, which we go second just fine, because we see 1 to 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon, we pop the threatening back row of our opponents, which is where most disruption comes from in Genesys, and then our battle phase is like insane with Dragon Gate, so we just clear the back row, go to battle, clear their monsters, kill them in 1 turn. We go second very, very well with this level of disruption and extension, even without outside help. But you can see I've thrown a bunch of stuff just to specify what our disruption looks like in the games 2 and 3. Namely, Cyclone. A lot of decks protect their back row from destruction. We can pull in Cyclone over like the manifestations, or maybe sometimes we play 12 back row disruptions. I definitely have. Kaijus, because while tower decks aren't super popular anymore, I do run into Pearly with some regularity, and it's important to get rid of it, even though we do have a good matchup against Pearly anyways, because we can detach materials from their Noir and like non-targeting bounce UFZ. Speaking of which, we play 2 UFZs, and it's pretty trivial to completely lock people out of targeting, and that's always fun to do. And then the last thing I do want to mention is, because Charmers of the Grand Circle is a level 6 themselves, we can kind of make another rank 6 pretty often, so I'm playing a Dragulus in this build. Dragulus, if you don't know what this monster does, is actually pretty tight. Once per turn, you can detach a material to book an extra deck monster, and then if this is sent to grave while it's already face up or banished by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon it face down, and if it flips, you can non-targeting send something from field to grave. And it's like not once per turn on the resurrection, so if you bring it back and then it gets flipped and then it goes to grave again, you can just bring it back again. It's like crazy hard to get rid of this card, so I think it is underrated as a non-pointed 6. I still think Crazy Beast is the best non-pointed 6, but we're normally going into that off of Grand Pile-Up when given the chance, so having an extra one's not too bad. So yeah, that's the gist of what the deck is trying to do. We've got 9 more 1-card starters now, so we can play at 60, which makes us maybe a little less bricky than the 40-card version. I think we have 26 or 27 1-card starters in this build, alongside infinite extenders, basically. So I'm going to include the 1-card combo off of the Spellbook of the Grand Circle, and then we'll go play some games before wrapping it up. Cool? Cool. Okay, so here is the quote-unquote 1-card combo. You need any 2 cards just to put back in the deck to make it work, and this gets so infinitely much better, even if you just have 1, like, Charmer body to normal summon for a little bit of extension. But as it goes, this is pretty good already. So, we're going to start by activating Spellbook, obviously. It's the only card in our hand, and we're going to add 4 Charmers. Names don't really matter. I think the only important one to grab is Win if you have Taka Borg in hand, so that you can special summon it, but otherwise not terribly important. we will banish the spellbook from grave to fusion summon using all 4, and hey look, that allows us to bring back 4 level 3 bodies, which means we can go into Gabonga with 2 of them. We add Gone Wild because our board is already immediately cluttered with bodies. We do not have space to summon efficiently off of some of our lines, so by adding Gone Wild, we can then use it to tribute summon one of the 3s, then summon Doug from deck anyways, instead of just summoning Doug straight out. That gives us 2 level 6 bodies to go into Crazy Beast, and then we can use our other level 3 bodies to go into Exegard. Detach from Exegard, summon Zeptwing. Zeptwing searches us out the criticals, so we have our Omni Negate Counter Trap online. Then we contribute Gabonga to summon out Clatter, who can bring back the Gabonga. We can overlay our 2 into Torpedo to draw a free card. It's useless in this case. Then we can overlay that and our Gabonga for Zexal, set our Omni Negate Counter Trap, and that's the board. So this has protection from destruction via Crazy Beast, who can also suck up a spell trap from the opponent, which is pretty cool. We've got Exegard's either bounce or negate using critical. Utopic Future Zexal protects everything from targeting, and then can suck one of the opponent's monsters and make itself indestructible. It's also just giant. Then we have Clatter in Grave, who at a moment's notice can remove Gabonga from Zexal to summon itself back to summon the Gabonga, so that if we use Exegard Critical or Zexal, we can then suck up one of the opponent's monsters, and those are at cost, like they detach at cost, so even if you're under Dark Ruler or something, you can still get that suck. Crazy Beast is not at cost, it detaches as part of the effect, so you can't use Crazy Beast for that purpose, but it just gives us like a really strong layered end board with disruptions coming out of Grave, the back row, the front row, and again, it gets even better if you have literally any other body. Cool, cool. Okay, so for these shorter videos, I'm going to be just showing games. I actually played full matches of all of these, but just to shove more into a relatively short video and give you more variety, we're just going to do games. This one is up against White Forest, and it's pretty much just a showcase of what the spellbook part of the deck does uninterrupted. Because it's White Forest, they're on a bunch of breakers instead of hand traps, so they're not going to do anything. We still go into Assura King for insurance first, before we go into the Spellbook line, which is a really neat thing about this. You can protect the initial search off of it. And because we started Blue Boy, we bounce the Blue Boy, and this kind of showcases one of what I would consider maybe the biggest weakness of the deck, is just that we clog the board by creating so many bodies, and without links and the extra monster zone, it's just so hard to efficiently use some of the bodies. Here, I mean, it works out. We almost always get to some variant of this exact board, where we've got Assura King as a monster negate and destroy, Exegard as a bounce, or we can use critical with the Exegard material as an Omni negate, and then Zexal floodgates the opponent. He's big, he's protected from destruction, he can steal something, all that good stuff. And then in the grave, we do have Clattersploder, which can detach the Gabonga, or we can detach Gabonga for Zexal's own effect, to bring Gabonga back, so the next time we use one of our materials, it steals something. So good, layered, strong end board. And one of the super neat things about this deck in this line is that because we bounced a Blue Boy, we can just do it again next turn, because when you use Spellbook of the Grand Circle, you add 4 Charmers from deck, banish, or grave. You can add the Charmers of the Grand Circle back to your extra deck to summon it again with 2 or 3 materials on the next turn, which is so freaking cool, because Genesys goes longer. Unfortunately, they go Dark Ruler, we negate it. Cool, awesome. That's an Ultimate Slayer. Okay, that takes out our remaining 2 disruptions. That sucks, but we can at least pull out the Gabonga, and then have it ready for Assura King, detach a material, suck something. Unfortunately, they had a Kaiju as well. Okay, that gets rid of the Gabonga, and we have no actual disruptions left. The board is not unbreakable, clearly, but unfortunately for the opponent, because they brought in so many board breakers that they opened 3 of them, they didn't open a starter, and so they just scoop it up, knowing we have not only follow-up, but I think lethal on board already. So, you know, sometimes that's how it goes, but that shows you that, 1, the deck just puts out a million bodies and does stuff with it. And 2, it plays through so much disruption that the opponent has to lose the game for themselves in order to stop you, which is pretty tight. Cool, cool. Game 2, we are up against Vanquish Soul. This is game number 2 of the match. So we won the toss, won going first the first game, and now we're in game 2. And they're going first this time, and Vanquish Soul is pretty scary, especially when they manage to assemble their pieces, which they're very much going to manage to do here. So this one is going to show off how we can break a board, and whether or not we can efficiently break their board here is going to determine this game. Because, you see, we don't have any hand traps. We don't play hand traps. We don't have points for that. We've got 3 DD Crows in the side deck, and that wouldn't do anything against Vanquish Soul, really. Especially not without Rock. So they get everything set up. We rip visions off the top. That's one of the best possible answers we can get, because I'm assuming at this point they didn't set the trap. I guess they're not playing it. What is it? The Snow Devil? So I assume that they had it in hand and they just played it. So we need to get rid of Snow Devil to play the game, but it was Lost Wind, actually, for some reason. So I guess they're not playing Snow Devil, which is weird. Okay, well, we go Terror Top. That's a good start. And then we summon out Swen, which allows us to go into Ashura King while still having at least 2 starters and 1 extender in hand. They see that we have that, they immediately go to try and pop it, we negate the pop, they go Holly Sue to steal it. Okay, well now they have a monster negate and destroy, and that's a bit annoying, but that's okay because every other piece of interaction we knew about is gone. So we can special summon out the Eldum, and then trigger Eldum's effect to go add another monster or an MST. They're going to go to negate that. We'll tribute the Eldum anyways because it's going to get destroyed, so we might as well use the body here. For Grand Breakout to go special summon a Goblin, we summon out Gone Wild. Gone Wild is going to special summon Doug. Doug is going to go add Grand Bash so that we can modulate levels, so that we can do stuff. And we haven't even touched this tour guide yet, and it looks like they're completely out of interaction, which means we can go into, well, a whole bunch of stuff. See, we don't need critical here. I think I might have even cited it out knowing we were going second. That's what I tend to do, is I'll cite out the traps if we're going second to bring in extension and disruption, and that works pretty well. But what we do have is a vanilla brick in our hand, and Materia Actors, funny enough, turn a vanilla brick into an extra body, or 2 extra bodies sometimes. So we can go Gigadra, pitch our vanilla to summon Zeftwing, who brings back the vanilla in addition to grabbing another extender in Exoraptor. So we've got everybody in the entire world. We can just go into Dragon Gate, because we see that they probably aren't flipping out anymore for the rest of the turn. They've got the 2 flippy guys on board already. We can detach, bring stuff back, drop their attack everything, drop their attack even more. They're just so incredibly dead here. We've got 3 attacks on attack position monsters, so that's 6,000 damage, and then another 8,000 on top of that. We can also pitch Exoraptor to give Gabonga another 15. We've got 10,000 damage over lethal here, and that's kind of what the deck is trying to do, going second even against good decks. And then lastly, this one was just funny. We're up against Chainburn. The first game was an absolute slaughter because we're pretty much just built to destroy this exact deck with the amount of MSTs we play. But we only rip 1 here, so we can't make it a non-game. Here's a tip. I already knew at this point this was a Mahama the Fairy Dragon. If Burn isn't playing a card, if they just sit on it when they have space, it's a Mahama the Fairy Dragon, which just burns you when you attack them in battle. Not gonna end up being, well, it's definitely relevant here. Definitely relevant. So we go Visions to search an MST. The thing we really need to get rid of is Chain Energy. We can kind of play around Skull Invitation here, and we don't know the other 2, but I'm assuming either of these is going to be more damage than those because we can get to those in time with our XZs. So you see we pop the Chain Energy, which allows us to start summoning cards. Okay, cool. Then we can go into Alucard, pop a set card. Well, just desserts. You take 500. Haha, get wrecked, noob. Okay, Grand Pulse popped the last one. That's a trap trick. Okay, I mean, that means we know they have a Ring of Destruction, so we just turn our 2 back row poppers into Zexal, so that if they go Ring of Destruction, they have to target the Zexal to pop it, because you can't target something else while it's on board, and the amount of burn they'll get is 0, because it has 0 original attack. Well, our hand is not great at this point, but we can make it work. We'll go into Gabanga, they go, pop it. Ooh, we take 900 from stuff going to grave, but we are starting to get a little bit low, so we gotta be a bit careful. We go into Gone Wild summons Clatter, Clatter summons back the Gabanga, and right here, I say, okay, they have a Mahama the Fairy Dragon. That means that we're going to take, at most, 2400 if we go to swing at them a bunch. I don't want to put myself low enough that the Mahama is lethal regardless of what happens. So instead of going any further, we just go to battle. I swing a bunch. I do get greedy here. We can't attack with the Gone Wild because it was special summon off of Grand Breakout this turn. I debated not attacking with Gabanga because that means this is just dead in hand and they were greedy. They held it for as long as possible. That was probably correct, but I figure get in the damage here because if they draw something good, we might be dead anyways. I don't know. I think it was incorrect in retrospect. Because we can go into Exegard, attach a card. We have exactly 1 card we can send to grave before we're done and we'll die on the next one. So we go to draw phase, we see they set, that's scary, but maybe it's nothing. We rip the MST, which is great because that means that we can play a whole bunch of cards instead of 1 card here because we can pop the Skull Invitation. I figure that is the known evil, and maybe this one's a battle trick and we can deal with a battle trick pretty easily. We summon out Gigadra, we suck up their Mahama, and then we make our second UFC because Magic Cylinder, which is the primary battle trap they're probably using, targets, which means if we attack with anything besides Zexal and they're low enough that anything else will kill them, they can't do it. But it wasn't Cylinder anyways, it was Zoma the Spirit. Okay, well, Zoma says that if someone destroys it in battle, double the original attack gets dealt as damage. Cool, UFC has 0 original attack, so we can swing over it there, and then swing with anything else for lethal. Yeah, and it's Chain Burn in Genesys in the year 2026, more likely than you think, I guess, but I thought it was a pretty funny one. We were uniquely positioned to dismantle exactly this deck. I don't know, if that was cool. Let's go close the video. And we're back with closing thoughts on Goblin Charmers. So, I don't know, I've said basically everything. The big issue, as I mentioned, is just space. We produce a ton of bodies off of basically any line, and we just don't have things we can do with them. One of the other big issues with every version of 3-Axis I've been running into lately is the fact that there's just not another good disruptive rank 3 body. I would like just any generic good disruptive body that's unpointed, and apparently they don't want to give us that because we've got Totem Bird would be cool if it was unpointed. What else was there? Cicada King would be cool if it was unpointed. Gossip Shadow would be cool if it was unpointed. They don't want to let us do that. So our actual boss monster options are pretty weak, if we're being completely honest. Outside of that, you could be playing Dante, maybe sort of does something. Zen Mains, if you squint, is almost disruption. I don't know. I'd love to have just one more good thing that we could make if we had extra bodies, but we are not allowed that luxury. But yeah, if you watch the previous video, you know what this deck is trying to do. We break boards and kill people very well going second. Going first, we extend through a ton of interaction and establish fairly solid boards, not the craziest thing you've ever seen. And our biggest weakness is just bricking. It doesn't happen too terribly often, and especially post-side, once I take out the traps, that's even fewer bricks that we can draw into. But it does still happen. It was game 2 against White Forest. We opened a hand that if we were going first would have done just fine. It had like a starter and an extender, but going second into an established board, just, we can't really make it work on just one starter, one extender, and 3 bricks. That just doesn't work that way. So it does happen, and it does happen when you don't want it to, but it is not super duper common even with 5 more bricks, just because we have 9 more great starters in the deck now. So I don't know. I'd say I wouldn't change anything, but with the rate at which I have been working on the 3-axis deck, I'm sure I will find something to change anyways. But that'll be it for this one, guys. Look forward to another Charmer-based video tomorrow, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.